Welcome, everybody, to counterclipping number 263 for March 30th, 2026. And I'd like to thank everybody for coming out this evening. We are drinking the last of the science experiment that I performed with Michter's bourbon, bottled at 47 or so percent. I have put a substantial amount of water in it because it needs it. Maybe not because of the Michter's, to be honest, although I think I put Michter's in the regular stuff too. We are clipping once again an 1814 Twilight in the East. We are working on the rest of the Austro-Hungarians that I foolishly thought I had finished. So once again, thanks everybody for coming out tonight. I'd like to remind everybody before we get started to please like the video if you haven't done that yet. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that yet. You have a chance to be the 10,001st subscriber to Ardwulf's Lair here tonight. So that does mean that a celebration is in order, which we will be doing next Monday. There will be a giveaway of some kind, maybe multiple things. I haven't thought about it too much yet, but there'll definitely be something given away next week. So also big shout out and big thanks to the patrons of Ardwulf's Lair, without whose support and encouragement we could not keep doing this, as well as our official sponsor, the good folks at Noble Knight Games, from whom we will hear later. Tonight is the topic tonight is traveling with Wargames, since as I'm about to discuss, there will be some traveling soon. So thanks everyone for the congratulations. We did some giveaways on the Chit Show last night, actually, with the trivia night. So those giveaways are now spoken for, so there's no sense watching it now. Although you will have to watch me scratch my head a couple of times at questions that either Dan or myself bungled. I would have chosen questions with clear answers, but that's what happens when I let Dan do the show. So news, there is some news. 10K is the big news. That's kind of a major milestone here at YouTube. And certainly for the wargaming space, it is awesome. So I await the vast amounts of money that YouTube will be sending me. God damn it. This is what happens, folks, when you're still using a Chromium-based browser, because it has all the problems of Chrome. I'm not blaming Linux for this. Everything else has been nice and stable. So as soon as I talk about the YouTube money, yeah, because YouTube is aware of exactly how much money they send me on a monthly basis, and it is not that much money. So we are, and a big thanks to someone who has sent me some bread due to the current situation via PayPal as of yesterday or today. So thank you. You know who you are. So nope. This is just me, or probably YouTube demonetizing it for excessive bagpipe presence. That's possible. So I'm pretty sure this has nothing to do with YouTube. Anyway, the other big news is that Dan and myself have concurred, and we will be going to SD HistCon North in St. Paul, Minnesota in a few months. That is still in the planning phases. A couple of people had kind of chipped in, including Harold, chipped in to kind of help out. So we are thrilled that we're going to be able to go. So the plan is to do a live chit show from SD HistCon North. I'm not sure what the bandwidth situation is going to look like. So what that might end up being is a recorded show that we will then broadcast in place of a usual Sunday show, but we'll see how that works. I am in agreement with this. I'm not that world's biggest fan of Tabasco, though. It's good in certain things, but it's very vinegary, and whatever you're putting it on needs to be okay with that. For certain types of cuisine, I prefer something else. So with that out of the way, we might as well get straight to the topic here as I clip. So I wondered, since this came up, what kind of provisions we make for Wargames when we are traveling. Now, the obvious answer to this question is bring a laptop that has Vassal on it, because then you can pretty much do whatever you want. But barring that, what kinds of small war games can we pack? I'm not sure this will do you much good waiting in the line at the TSA. I'm sure that's going splendidly right now. But well, we don't know that they're letting Dan over the border yet, actually. So Tabletop Simulator would be another example that you might think of as real time. Just pointed out, there's nothing wrong with that. It is, however, good for certain kinds of war games that don't have a lot of tables or a huge, map and tons of pieces. If I were to try to play World in Flames, for example, in Tabletop Simulator, and I have no knowledge of a module for it, that sounds like really difficult, actually. And for that matter, I found playing Europa Universalis, The Price of Power on Tabletop Simulator to be very clumsy. There is a vassal module for it now. I think it is the kind of game that will work better on vassal, although I have not yet investigated said vassal module. All right, Bill from Molotov Cocktail Games. And actually, if you are waiting in line on the TSA at the airport, I might recommend Bill's very own game Arete, which you can pick up for Android or iOS and play it on your phone. And it's a legit war game that plays on mobile. So check that out. And it's also available on Steam if you aren't traveling anytime soon. All right. Well, so we are presuming here that we're not traveling to wargaming conventions, but if you are and you need to prep, hey, that's not a terrible idea. My first thought when I thought of the question was the Decision Games minis. Now, to be honest about it, I think the quality is uneven, but there are some good ones. The ones I've got and which I have a reasonably high opinion of are Belisarius's War, Caesar's War, and Letau Vorbeck, which is World War I in East Africa. These are all very small, point-to-point, card-driven games that are so small you could, in principle, play them on the airplane with the physical copy. Solitaire Caesar is a Paolo Mori design. Is that the right one? Am I thinking of just Caesar? That's possible. I'm probably mixing that up. Brant from the Armchair Dragoons is here, and of course, we do have the legend himself in the house tonight. I don't necessarily agree with this because if you're curious, you can go watch some of Jim Orzarski's stuff where they've done some like old SPI quad games on Tabletop Simulator, and I think that works just fine. But those games are not table heavy, they are not rules heavy, they are not counter heavy. The maps are fairly compact, and I think that format works fairly well in Tabletop Simulator. If you're going to try and play Case Blue or something like that, possibly not. Stephen Rochelle keeps Ogre Pocket in his messenger bag, which I think is actually a very good idea. Let's see. Caesar's War. Yeah, Caesar's War. I like Caesar's War. Bring dice. Yeah, tiny dice tower might be too much for the airplane. Bill also mentions 300 and Persia versus Greeks, which I have no experience with whatsoever. I didn't think it was quite that small. Solitaire. Okay, Meandering Mike mentions that Solitaire Caesar is White Dog Games. I picked up a new White Dog game at Buckeye Game Fest directly from Blue Panther. It is Sword of Orthodoxy, History of the Byzantine Empire, covers all 1,000 years of that history. And it is a Ben Madison game that looks to me like a States of Siege derived game. Some States of Siege games are certainly small enough to travel with. The one I've got is that I would like stick in a messenger bag is probably We Must Tell the Emperor, which is a neat looking game. I haven't played it yet, but I've got the old one from those guys, Victory Point Games, and it just comes in a little like half-size envelope, so it should be small enough. Yeah, this is what I thought too, and I felt pretty good about. I haven't played First Jihad, but I have played The Mission, which I liked a lot. I don't know that when I say that, I mean necessarily that it is the greatest solitaire game or States of Siege game available. I'm not sure that's true, but I found the topic fascinating, and I found the coverage of the topic to be pretty responsible and thoughtful. So I did like that particular game, and that is a Ben Madison game, and I think that First Jihad is as well. Real Time mentions JU87 Stuka Ace on Tabletop Simulator. Those DVG Ace games, Stuka Ace, is that what we're talking about? Yeah, I think so. Those might be good for travel games too, but they do tend to come in kind of big boxes if you're going to haul all of that around. Oh, that's a good call. Joe Mentum mentions Horse and Musket from Hollenspiel. And that will also allow you to have like a whole bunch of different battles potentially in one relatively slim 1-inch box. Let's see. Ron Nicholson, thanks for stopping by, says that he almost never travels, which is too bad. Ron should get to more conventions, but I've met him at Origins, and I'm not sure whether it was Origins or BGF now that I think about it. It's roasting in here. We are at about 70 degrees here in Northeast Ohio on a off and on rainy day. So the weather has not been super duper dreadful for the last couple of days, but we did have a big storm that came through a few days ago that blew down a bunch of trees in the neighborhood, and fortunately none of the ones on our property. So I'm happy about that. Scott Bell took Malta Besieged on a trip. I've seen this on a table. It is a pretty small footprint. And if I was going like out of town for like work, I'm bringing the laptop with me and probably get some solitaire play of something like BCS or GCACW or something like that. What else do we got? Brant, thanks for stopping by. If I didn't say that already, he says some of the best fit on an airplane tray games are the battle card games from Nils Johansson and David Thompson. There's 4 or 5 of them, and someone made a web adaptation you can play online too. That would be even more convenient if you don't have to transport the game. Death by Board Games, thanks for stopping by as well. Welcome to the show. Airland and Sea, I have no experience with that either, to be completely honest. Brian Gash keeps his C3I Waterloo. I think that's actually a good call. That's a pretty good game. It is a full-sized map, however, but the counter density is not that high. The play is very clean, so it's not going to take you like a million hours to do it. The book games from Worthington. I hadn't thought of this at all. Thank you, Jeff T, for mentioning it. Those would be very easy to just throw in your carry-on. Sean Sullivan will be trying out the new Battle of the Bismarck Sea at the Beach House this weekend. It's nice that you've got a beach house. And Stacking Limit says some of the folio games from Decision are good. Arnhem and Antietam. I think the one I had, the World War II one that I had, was Bastogne, and which is part of the Fire and Movement system that covers a number of the solitaire games, and I was not a big fan of them. Well, this is a problem. I'm going to open the door. This is a question that needs to have an answer fairly soon. The trouble is that there is no current Ardwulf's Lair merch store, and all of the ones I have are used. So I don't think I'm Mick Jagger, so I imagine that nobody wants those. But we do have to come up with a merch store solution pretty soon. So stay tuned for news on that. Death by Board Games had fun with Mike Lambo, of course, Lone Sherman on the road, which is good. As Doug mentions, he usually uses Vassal, but sometimes he brings along a physical game. TCS Semper Fi worked out pretty well. That's cool. That's one of the ones I don't have. I've got what I feel like is probably all the TCS games. This is strong. TCS games that I need at the moment, but that does not preclude me buying the new TCS game that will be along at some point from MMP. David Imperato, welcome back to the show, used to play the VPG edition of We Must Tell the Emperor on lunch break at work. It is a great game. Good to know. Somebody sent it to me, and I should really try to honor that by playing it. Drew Detterer Drew, also welcome to the show, used to bring the chips for the Second Family's annual Christmas poker showdown. We actually busted out. I played gin rummy with the wife last night. It was actually less irritating than I expected it to be, but maybe I was simply not as uptight as I usually am about, I don't like those games. Ugh. So Perry G mentions magazine games and somebody else mentioned magazine games as well. And I think this is a good idea. But that said, like your standard SPI size magazine game feels a little big to me. Certainly, you're not going to play it on the tray table in the airplane, but that does not preclude you from setting it up in the hotel room, of course, although I would personally be worried about housekeeping fucking it up. Brant says ping him later about the merch store. I'm investigating fourth wall at the moment, but we'll see if that actually happens. Danny, you've got a shirt on me whenever the shirts get worked out again. I also don't actually want the shirts to be identical to the ones that were in the old merch store. I don't necessarily expect radical changes, but that said, so I will do some degree of redesigning on the shirts, but don't expect them to be vastly different. Marshall Bob mentions the old GDW Series 120 games. That can be put in a carry-on, or you could throw the whole World War II campaigns revision set from Compass into a box and carry 3 reasonably chewy games. So, well, we might have hoodies because I would like hoodies too. And every time I try to do any kind of sweatshirt through Spring had serious problems delivering said merchandise. So I personally had that issue. So, all right. This is weird, but if you really want, okay. Stacking limit. Wait a minute. We got to go here. So the Tabletop's Edge, Doug, thanks for stopping by, says that No Turning Back is done. The proofs have been approved. Could be shipping as early as May, which is fantastic. Looking forward to seeing No Turning Back. This year will be the year of the wilderness, I think, with 2 big wilderness games releasing at the regimental level. I do expect the Stepping into Hell, which is the GBACW wilderness game to probably, well, I'm not sure, but I think that got a good chance to land this year as well. Bill mentions DBG's Modern Naval Battles for $10 on Miniature Market. That's not bad. I've bought from Miniature Market before. They're under new ownership, and I don't know what that means. I don't think I have bought anything from them for reasons that should be obvious since the ownership change. Okay, so Brant says fourth wall's been good. Except that McKenna keeps stealing the stuff, so that's fantastic. That they have polo shirts is cool too. Right, that's something I never investigated through Spring. Let's see. Oh, outstanding. Charles Latorre is wearing Ardwulf's Lair t-shirt and using his Napoleon cup. Doug also mentions that the next BCS game will be France 40. It will cover the front from Stone up through Anu in Belgium. OCS Case White game is coming up too. I knew about that. And of course I knew about France 40, although the fact that it is the next BCS game in line. Well, good thing we don't have any visual aids tonight, so that's fantastic. All right, so apparently the last MMP podcast, which you can get on Spotify now, by the way. I don't really like to watch it on YouTube because of ads, but Spotify, I don't have to deal with that. Then again, I don't have a long commute now either, so my podcast listening is down a bit. You can travel with ASL. You can absolutely put a couple of boards and a couple of scenarios and a couple of packs of counters in a travelable case that will fit on your carry-on. Okay, this is great. Yeah, I mean, they should be better about this, to be honest about it. It's not like any of those fellows over there are new at this. After all, we're using a different app on Linux to manage the camera, and I think autofocus is working a little less well than it was previously. So let's see here. So Dave Poirier says, VUCA News got Operation Overlord today. I have Imperial Elegy coming from our good friends at Noble Knight. that'll probably be here in the next few days. So we'll have an unboxing of that, certainly. And it was getting played at BGF, so looks very interesting. Maurice Suckling also was kind enough to send me a copy of Crisis 1914, and I'm going to give that a whirl as well, which does mean I got to clear the table off, meaning I have stuff stacked on the table lids right now. So I got to fix that and then get into the table so we can actually get some gaming done around here. So according to Carl, the Line of Battle honchos are motivated and have been busy developing new stuff. We should see a more frequent release schedule in that series going forward. That's great. Great news. I'm happy to hear that. I like Line of Battle. I think it's very good. I think I do prefer, for a couple of reasons, GBACW. But part of that is just that there's a lot more available for GBACW than at present there is for Line of Battle. On the other hand, Line of Battle does have Gettysburg and Antietam, and we're going to have the Wilderness real soon now. And those are three big battles that I would want to play. GBACW has never covered it until Stepping into Hell comes out. So, it was something else. Very good. Oh, so Doug also mentions that the next GC-ACW game should be on the 1862 Kentucky campaign. That's cool. I'm still probably a little more excited by a new version of Stonewall in the Valley, given that that's going to be include the 1864 campaign as well. Stigler, who is in the loop on GBACW, says it's going to be well worth whatever wait we must endure. In a hair-pulling, confusing way is exactly how that battle should work out. They have not reached out to me. However, if Ardbeg is watching, I will be happy to consider a sponsorship for your fine beverages. Oh, yeah, the old metagaming games, which technically includes things like Ogre and Car Wars and even Melee and Wizard, for that matter. But Neil Badkeep mentioned Stalin's Tanks, Rommel's Panzers, and Fire When Ready. And I can tell you that at least Stalin's Tanks and Rommel's Panzers were like available from Decision. And for whatever reason, I'm not sure why, those seem to be not particularly hard to get nowadays. So... yeah, I know. I don't know why I don't have one, but that's something else. So, all right. Now, thanks to the browser crash, we're behind on the chat again as usual. Well, you could, if they're going to do the podcast every week, maybe they have the production update monthly. That's cool. I don't necessarily think I don't think it's reasonable to expect them to give us a production update every week necessarily. If stuff's happening, on the other hand, why not? Oh, okay. So very good. The next new GCACW. That sounds cool too. That's an interesting idea. Jonathan Dyer mentions Decisions Ougamont mini game. That would be interesting to try. Actually, I haven't tried. Is that true? So the one Napoleonic, but it's a folio, not a mini, that I have is Leipzig. And I haven't tried that. Carl Fung is here. Carl, thanks for stopping by. Drew has been fitting the backbone of Starfleet battles into a backpack for years. Yes, Lee has been doing that as well, as he hauls it over to, although I don't know if he might be carrying more stuff than that. So I don't know. And Carl says that we've got, for Line of Battle, Wilderness, then Perryville, which is another interesting battle, and Champion Hill, which is another interesting battle. So that's great news. It goes without saying that the latest edition of Ogre is, in fact, not a game that you should plan to travel with unless your destination is a convention at which you plan to play it. This could be, and props to Vanders for the Logan's Run joke, which I got immediately. Wolfdog mentions Up Front, which is another game that one of my local buddies has the current version that you can get through Wargame Vault, and it's fairly portable. So yeah, you could haul that around, and in fact, hauling that to a convention is not a terrible idea at all. All right, so Marty Sample says that he thinks that they printed about 50,000 copies of Rommel's Panzers and Stalin's Tanks. They've been available new and shrink for like 50 years. Yeah, that's close to correct. Not doing any math at the moment. But that's close to correct, since those all came out around late 70s, early 80s. And I can't speak to the print runs, but it feels like they had a lot of extra ones because you could still get them. I don't have any knowledge or experience of those games, however. The only thing that I've really looked at from metagaming has been Ogre and Car Wars, both of which I've played, and Melee and Wizard, which are part of the Fantasy Trip. And if you got the new big box Fantasy Trip, which I do, then those like mini games come in as mini games inside the giant Fantasy Trip box. So Bill mentions Tried Struggle Red Sea, which I haven't tried. Let's see here. Starter kit ASL. Yeah, you could get a pretty comprehensive kit to play starter kit in one of the starter kit boxes. I think those would be a pretty good travel game. That does, I mean, if you will be playing it solitaire, however, I don't think that ASL is the best game as a solitaire experience, but if there's nothing really wrong with just two-handing ASL, in my opinion. So Combat Commander, you could do this. I mean, in this sense, you could pack a couple of maps and a couple of scenarios and whatever counters you need, and you'd probably be fine. Wolfdog mentions that his SD-Con hack was fitting 3 GMT games in his backpack by putting them in bags and leaving the boxes at home. This is a possibility, and it is probably going to prevent a certain amount of wear and tear on your boxes. So there's that. As Stacking Limit points out, please do give the show a thumbs up if you haven't done already. Ooh, this is a good call. Drew mentions 20th Main, which is an old OSG game that got repackaged and republished by Avalon Hill as Little Round Top. And since we're talking about those, there's the additional games of Bonaparte in Italy. I think that's what it's called. And 100 Days Battles. Those are all basically the same sized games. They were produced by Avalon Hill in the tiny boxes. So those would be good picks. Bell of Treason, is that out? I was unaware that was actually out yet. The Starter Kit magazine. Did I get the Starter Kit magazine? I'm not sure that I did. Marty says he uses blank white GMT boxes to consolidate or travel with multiple games in the same box. This is a good idea too. I happen to not have any spare blank GMT boxes at the moment because they were all repurposed into holding my Pathfinder pawns. And that is probably going to continue to be the case until I reorganize those, which I have no intention of doing anytime soon. Oh, the TSR micro games. Yeah, that's a good point. We mentioned these on a show a couple of weeks ago. Saga Age of Heroes was one of them. There was one that was just called, I think, Vampire, and there were several other ones as well. And those are very small, very compact war games. And of course, there's postcard games too, right? And in fact, for travel purposes, that might be one of the use cases for postcard games. So, and yeah, that's a good point. Is there any? I had this all figured out, but it was in a browser tab, so it crashed along with everything else. I am putting a invite link to the Ardwulf Lair Discord community in the chat right now. So hop on that. See, it doesn't look like that crashed. There's a little bit of flux going on right now with Wayland, which is one of the Windows management tools for Linux. Well, at least some Linux distributions use it. And Nobara in particular has done like a bunch of huge updates lately that completely changed the way you update the system. So, got to get rid of that. TSR had a Pocket Alamo. I think I remember that too. And Drew mentions that TSR and Steve Jackson both made minigames of hunting down Dracula. Fury of Dracula, which I believe was originally Games Workshop, which I saw on a table at BGF. I think there's a more recent version of it. That's supposed to be pretty good, but I have no experience with that either. And we're still on. Oh, Fort Sumter is a good point. However, that said, with Fort Sumter, Red Flag over Paris, I would consider, but just because I don't have a digital version of it, I do have the digital version of Fort Sumter. And if I have a digital version of it, I'll bring that. I've got digital versions of a number of other wargame adjacent things like Twilight Struggle and Labyrinth, and there's at least a couple more that I can't think of right now. The Gettysburg game, I've got that as well, and those are pretty much straight adaptations of the tabletop games. So I appreciate you saying this. I am reluctant to make this claim myself, but it is a very solid Discord community, and there has been the amount of misbehavior on the Discord, on the Ardwulf Discord community, has been extremely low, possibly non-existent. Ooh, Raid on Iran, yeah, one-page bulge actually, originally by Steve Jackson, and which got kickstarted by Dana Lombardi for a new version not too long ago. Perigi says that the new Plague of Dracula game from Mike Nagel looks great, and that probably will travel well. Oh, very good. Of course, Paul Rohrbaugh has an extensive list of pretty small games. I'll put a link at GOT. I'll put another link. I'll post it in there right now, but it's in the chat somewhere. Bill says Pocket Campaign for North Africa. It would actually be awesome if somebody came up with this, but you'd be basically completely designing a new game on the topic at that point. So, all right. Brant, Saga Age of Heroes, and Revolt on Antares, Vampire, they've invaded Pleasantville. It is probably Viking Gods that makes me always think of SPI's Ragnarok. For that Attack Force. That is such a generic name. I have no idea what that would be about, and I probably didn't back in the day either. They've invaded Pleasantville. Was that them, or was I have Metagaming or Steve Jackson in my head for that, but it could easily have been TSR. Tempestop's Edge says that the biggest game he's traveled with was the Blitzkrieg Legend, which is an OCS game on the campaign for France in 1940. That is an excellent game. That's fantastic. You set the campaign up on the second queen bed. Why not? It's a 3-map game, but one of the maps is pretty small. So it's got a very reasonable footprint. And it's a really good game. It's probably my favorite game on that campaign specifically, but you are of course signing up for OCS when you play it. So it's, it's not a incredibly quick playing game, but that said, it's got a pretty short length. It's like 17 turns or 18 turns or something like that. So you're not signing up for like 60 turns or a large version like that. Cardboard Commander, thanks for stopping by. You have missed a lot of talk about very small games so far. Drew says that Attack Force was Death Star with the serial numbers filed off. Well, I probably don't have any interest in picking that thing up nowadays. But I don't know. The one that I wanted back in the day, and I'm sure I've mentioned this at some point, was Saga Age of Heroes, just because it sounded cool. The TSR minis are not games that get a lot of attention nowadays, and I suspect that is for a good reason. If you would like to hear all the down and dirty about the TSR days, I will point you in a couple of different places. One is, of course, John Peterson's Playing at the World, which talks a lot about it. Although I haven't read the New Editions Volume 2 yet. I'm in the middle of the New Editions Volume 1, which is the invention of Dungeons and Dragons. And you can also look at his book, Game Wizards, which talks more about TSR and is much less focused on D&D. Plus the Once We Were Dragons When We Were Dragons podcast, which is a completed podcast that's like 14 episodes or something like that. And it's a lot of interviews with people talking about the old days of TSR, and it was fairly illuminating. Panzerblitz, Panzer Leader, yeah, if ASL does, sure. You probably want to pack that in a smaller container, but otherwise... Oh, yeah, I think so. Brant says that TSR Saga was just the Norse equivalent of Iaquinto's mythology game, which I never saw. Well, I don't want to say I never saw it, but I never looked at it closely. So we're doing great on time here so far. Another, I really do like the idea of the book games for travel purposes. I think that's a very good idea. And as mentioned, Worthington has a bunch of them, including the Starship Commander one, which is actually kind of the one that I want. Plus, Mike Lambo has an extensive design list of book games that you can look at, and that stuff is all available through Amazon as print-on-demand stuff, as I recall. Oh, nice. Neil Badkey says he worked with Luke Gygax on GDW's Mythos with Gary. Yeah, no kidding. My connection to Gary is in the context of Mythos, actually. He ran it for us at a Gen Con. I don't know when off the top of my head. I didn't bring my books to get autographed or anything like that. But I had an extensive conversation at that same Gen Con with Dave Newton, who was one of Gary's helpers on the project. And I liked it at the time. I ran the game for 3 years. In retrospect, I think that there are some neat ideas in it, some neat detail in it. And it really needed an extra couple of years in development to turn it into a more manageable game. But they didn't really have that amount of time. So Stigler's bashing Ace of Aces. Oh, he hated Ace of Aces, unfortunately. Well, the new Ace of Aces looks interesting, and we might have something to show you in that department as well before too long. All right. I mean, there is some truth to this, right? If that like format just doesn't work for you, oh well. So I can understand that. And to be honest, it's not really my bag either. But that said, you can absolutely fit it in a carry-on. All that said. Yeah, Neil, I would agree. I don't know that editor is quite the word, although that would have helped too. I will say that it needed a developer that, and I don't know what the internal dynamic was in that project. So I can't speak of whether I mean, I think it's easy to leap to the conclusion that whoever they had working on it was not like standing up to Gary, who did have a very he had a lot of personality. Let me put it that way. So this is not a bad idea. I am aware of nobody working in this space right now. Bill says that we should have a war game that folds up like a travel chess set with magnetic pieces. I suppose one could manufacture such a game out of a suitably small initial game. It's not that difficult after all to magnetize your counters. The mobile game is Arete from Molotov Cocktail Games. That is the digital game that I mentioned earlier. Yes, my understanding is that this ought to be shipping fairly soon. I am not positive what happened, but I just got a duplicate of a Kickstarter that I backed some time ago, and they sent it to me twice. Ben Rake's book, also like the podcast that I mentioned when we were wizards, is also fairly reliant on interviews. There's nothing wrong with that, but you take that into account when you are evaluating this book on the history of whatever it is as history, right? Yeah, Bill should pump his own work. Arete, there we go. Oh, Ken got his Ace of Aces already. That's cool. In fairness to Bill, we did have him on the show to talk about it when it came out. So I think that was right around the time of its Android release, as I recall. So, and to be clear, Danny is saying that Arete is addictive. And it's neat. So yeah, and it's like I said, a legit war game that you can play without a huge like mental or physical footprint. In fact, there is no physical footprint except whatever footprint your phone has. So, oh, the Sandhurst Book of War Games. This is something I never had, and to the best of my recollection, never looked at. But I do remember seeing it on the shelf of a bookstore in Elyria, Ohio, in what was probably the late 80s, something like that. At the time, I was, of course, aware of miniature wargaming, but I had never done miniature wargaming. And to be honest, since then, I haven't done very much miniature wargaming either. But I was playing 40K for a while, and I did play whatever the steampunk thing is. I can't remember what that was called. Pretty decent game. And you could play it without an immense number of miniatures, which was nice. I also played a little bit of the old Iron Crown Enterprises. What the hell is it called? Blade Storm, which I have an entire army for, an entire barbarian army for, built around the old Grenadier barbarians, which I believe were Julie Guthrie miniatures. War Machine, thank you, Danny. That is probably the game that I am thinking of. Haven't touched it in a long time. Also played the Games Workshop Lord of the Rings miniature game, and that was pretty good. Somewhere around here, I've got a whole Rohirrim army as well. Okay, very good. We've got a new tray for the new set of counters we are picking. Ken says that he received Ace of Aces a couple of weeks ago. So anybody still waiting on that shouldn't be waiting too much longer, I would think. Perfidious Albion mentions Travel Battles by Perry Miniatures. I don't know what this would be. That's the thing with miniature war games, is I don't think you're playing them on your tray table on the airplane. And you know what? I played Little Necromunda too, and I like Necromunda and whatever the epic thing was the first time around. But it's been a long time since I've been inside that Games Workshop space. I made a conscious decision to just not do miniatures. Is the actual truth, because I didn't feel like I had the time to paint the miniatures. The way I paint is not good for playing miniature war games because I obsess over details and it's got to be absolutely perfect. And that means the shit don't get done. So we did an interview with Ed Bryan from the folks doing the Ace of Aces Kickstarter as well. So okay. Well, that's the first I've heard of this product. Danny says that at a gaming convention, somebody had Waterloo in 2mm, which is really tiny. But I believe it's isn't Pico Armor? Brant will know. I think Pico Armor is 2mm as well. So you could just bring your Pico Armor stuff. When we hosted, we meaning the Dragoons, hosted the Pico Armor game at Origins a couple of years ago, they used Panzer Blitz rules. So okay, Brand says Pico Armor is 3mm, but yeah, I would imagine it's a little bit hard to tell the difference at 2mm. So it's like my individual figure is the size of a human hair. So I liked what I saw. I didn't get to play it, but I liked what I saw and overheard about the game that they did. I just don't do miniatures, so. And if I seem dismissive of miniatures at various points, I'm not being serious. Okay, I am joking that I have made a decision to not deal with miniatures. Oh, that's too bad. So Brant says that the Pico Armor team will not be at Origins this year. Health issues are thwarting their deployment. That is damn unfortunate. Boy, this has got to be something else. So at that point, I mean, you're playing out Leipzig, which is there's 1 million men on the battlefield. and you're going to play that out in miniature. I don't know. That to me, that doesn't make much sense. I think you are much better off finding a Leipzig board war game and doing that. But I am speaking only for myself, and I'm not going to poo-poo any miniature gamers' attempts to do that. I just think that sounds like a lot of trouble, and the scale feels wrong, and probably not something I'm going to deal with at any time in the immediate future. So I don't even plan to pick up miniatures in my questionable retirement. So what are these? These are field rail heads. Okay. 2mm miniatures. Oh my God. Well, this isn't, I mean, I wouldn't say that miniatures are misplaced, but I will say that you are setting yourself up to have obstacles in the way of actually playing the games, which is supposed to be the whole point. But I will also say that the people that do miniatures, miniature war games in particular, they realize that, right? They realize that they are signing up not for one hobby, but for two. And frankly, the miniatures and terrain making and all that jazz of handling the miniatures and building the little buildings and all that is a more important section of that hobby than is the more important of those two hobbies. Let me put it that way. Dave from Wisconsin. Dave, thanks for stopping by. He has some Worthington games. They have been mentioned, the Worthington book games. The only Worthington things I have are not the book. I don't have any of the book games. In fact, I don't have any book games at all. But something like I could see Hall in something like Red Soviet Dawn. Along that doesn't take an immense amount of time to play. I played a whole playthrough video series of it. I probably screwed some stuff up, but that's not new. I can see the ice. All right. I can see the eye strain factor on the 2mm miniatures, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're reading like tiny, 1mm high numbers or anything like that. So, unhappy with the stability of, this Chromium-based browser. The browser I'm using is Brave because it lets me watch YouTube with no ads, and I like that. But it has the same stability issues that Chrome does, and it's probably a factor that the computer has been on for a couple of days. I'm not sure why, because I have it set to shut off every 30 minutes of inactivity. All right. So as John MC points out, if it's the theme of the Ace of Aces planes, little booklets that you don't like, there is Lost Worlds, which was a little fantasy battles thing that was actually tied to I think Ral Partha miniatures at the time. So you could buy the barbarian with sword and then get the barbarian with sword book from Nova. I would probably, and they did a BattleTech thing as well. I would probably be more inclined to play Lost Worlds than Ace of Aces, because if I was going to play like a World War I dogfighting thing, I think I would just rather it be, Ricky's War, if nothing else. So, back in the day, I'll have to think about exactly how long ago this was, but it's at least 10 years ago at this point. Yeah, I'm going to say it's sometime between 10 and 15 years ago when I was on Linux the last time. The best browser experience that I had was on Firefox. So I thought, and it's open source, so cool. So I installed Firefox right away when I switched over to Linux this last time, and it's fucking garbage. It's terrible. I had a terrible experience with it. Tons of ads and all this stuff. Brave knocks all that stuff out for me. It would be nice if we had another open source alternative browser, but and I'm not sure that Brave is. I don't think it is. But I will continue to maintain, however, that I am having a far better user experience on Linux right now than I was under Windows 11 back in the day. Mosaic, oh my God. Does that still exist? Well, now when I am currently seeking employment would be a terrible time to get a Mac, actually. I have also in the past been one of those people who poo-pooed Macs and Apple products and all that jazz. And the fact is that they are good products. Their operating system is a good operating system, but I also don't wish to pay the premium that one pays when purchasing Apple products. So, oh, here's Drew coming in with somebody should make a travel version of something, some of the block games from Columbia, but with plastic pieces and magnetic. So that's another thing, though, that you can get digitally. You can get several of the Columbia block games digitally through Steam. I don't know that they're available on mobile, but I probably wouldn't want to play them on mobile, so that might be fine. And yes, Nova did BattleTech books as well. I think I said that. I might not have. Molvad browser. So the trouble with the ad blockers that I've used is they usually just do nothing, and sometimes at best I have found that they will block ads for a limited amount of time, and then they will stop blocking ads because YouTube changed something with the way they present the information. So, and I'm having to like uninstall and reinstall those add-ons all the time, even though the add-ons are getting updated allegedly. Seems like extra pain in the rear to me. Proficiency Albert says that 6mm is the best for micro armor wargaming. Brant says that there's a set of Wolverines minis from Battlefront to use with their Team Yankee game from Red Dawn. Is that what these are for? Because that would be fun. Brangash says that Molvad has the best VPN. Molvad. I've never heard of this. It appears to be an Amazon product. Okay, I will investigate. The Arc, probably, but I'm not sure off the top of my head. So Charles Latour says that he thinks that there's more errata for card games based on cardboard rather than miniatures. And I do think that's true, but I also think that the reason for that is that the cardboard games, at least the ones I play, tend to be much more detailed than most miniature rule sets. There are some detailed miniatures rule sets. I'm aware of that. But in general, I think you are going to have less detail in a miniatures war game than you are in a, hex counter war game. All right. I don't actually remember what these are. Now, this is an asset, so it can go with the assets. I'm not sure. Advocating might be a little too strong of a word, but that was a thing that Avalon Hill did. You could play ASL with micro armor on the deluxe boards, and it would totally work. And the old deluxe modules, the recent reprint from MMP doesn't have these, but the old ASL deluxe modules back in the day, Streets of Fire and Hedgerow Hell, had vehicle cards for the vehicles, so that you had all of that information at your fingertips, the 75 different numbers that comes with every vehicle. I have never used Safari, to be fair. Oh, yeah. So if you are into historical miniatures wargaming, littlewars.tv is fantastic. Here on YouTube is fantastic. William Aaron says they seem to do miniature gaming in an interesting way. They seem to have a full company of players and producers to construct and perform their activities. Having a large team behind your YouTube channel is always a bonus. I do not have a large team. I have myself, and that's it. And occasionally the wife will lend me a hand. So, well, of course, they're not official Red Dawn miniatures, but still. All right. I will look into this Molvad thing. It apparently is an Amazon product, though. So, Oh, yeah. Okay. Blitzkrieg. Is this Paulo Mori's Blitzkrieg? I've got this. I have watched some playthrough video, and it is extremely abstract, but all of World War II in 20 minutes is frankly going to be abstract. So I think it does do what it says on the box. Oh, nice. Even Stigler has good things to say about Little Wars, at least on their program on the Peninsula campaign, which is fantastic. I have not really seen or investigated Dogfight or Caesar. That is the third of these Paulo Mori games, I believe. But people whose opinions I respect, like David Thompson, speak very highly of Blitzkrieg specifically. So the Wild Wild West miniatures game, is that like from the show Wild Wild West? Because that might be cool. That you could have fun with that. They had, who I don't even know who it was actually, at Origins a couple years ago. They had a huge display for Paulo Mori's Caesar. I think that was in the immediate wake of the success of Blitzkrieg. I remember seeing this or hearing about this. Obviously, I never took advantage of this particular service from SPI. Especially considering that, right around the time I was getting involved is right around the time SPI went away. So that was a factor. All right, folks, it is close to 9 p.m. here in glorious Northeast Ohio. So we are going to hear from our good friends at Noble Knight Games, the official sponsors of the Counter Clipping Show. Take it away, Noble Knight.
Here at Noble Knight Games, we've been carefully growing the world's largest selection of board games, role-playing games and dice, war games, miniatures and paints, card games, and more. Going on 25 years now. Our rustic castle contains more game and hobby goodness than you can shake a stick at. Complete with careful packaging and the finest customer service the land can provide. You can buy, sell, trade from anywhere in the world. Just like nature intended. Noble Knight Games.
All right, as usual, big thanks and a shout out to our good friends at Noble Knight, the official sponsors of the Counter Clipping Show. If you'd like to help support the show, this would be a great time to do that. And there is an affiliate link in the video description. So if you're going to buy stuff from Noble Knight anyway, use my affiliate link and I'll get a little bit of a kickback in the form of store credit. Which I can then turn around to bring actual games into here without having to call or email publishers and say, please send me a game, I'm broke now. So I cannot confirm that anyone is actually wandering around in the full tin can at Noble Knight. We did not see that either time I was there. And the Noble Knight penny sale is going on right now. So for every $20 you spend on your order, you can select one thing from the penny sale list. And as you would expect, it's a lot of small things, but you can always do searches and stuff like that. There are some interesting things in there. And it's a great way to catch up by with like the free RPG Day stuff, which they tend to have a lot of and which they sell for a penny just to get it out of the way. So, and some of that free RPG Day stuff is actually pretty cool. I've got, I'm not sure where it is. Well, unless it is. Yes, I do. I got this very nice dice, snappable dice tray from the free RPG Day folks at Origins one year. And it's a fairly nice, good sized. As an added bonus, it is hexagonal. So dice tray from the free RPG Day people. So even for Wargamers, folks, free RPG Day has stuff that you can use. Mandarin Mike says that Dogfight was in a box similar to Blitzkrieg and Caesar, but it was by Carlo Rossi. Okay, that might have been my my misapprehension as well. Okay, you guys talking the Mac stuff. I'm not telling you to stop, but I have no idea what you're talking about. So I did have an iPod back in the day. This would have been 20 years ago or so, and it was one of the bigger ones at the time. But the day of the iPod is long past. Now you can just use your phone for this function. So, and your phone is a lot more powerful than the iPod was. So, I will agree with Brant that the Dragoons dice tray is top tier. It is a very nice little dice tray. So we definitely did not. We did see the full-sized stand-up mannequin of Dridst, the dark elf from the Forgotten Realms. So, well, I don't know what they're talking about because I have never really. I've used a Mac a few times, but I've never really been inside the Mac or Apple ecosystems, and I'm not now, and I don't anticipate that that's going to change. This is a good idea, actually. I should do a dice tray with the Ardwulf Lair logo. I would have to look into that. That may be another thing I talked to Brent about because I know he has worked on this for the Dragoons. So Bill mentions the Victory Point bagged games. Yeah, absolutely. Or bagged or enveloped games. For that matter, this is not Wargaming stuff, but you might look at the cheap-ass games products. The vast majority, and there's some pretty decent games in there too. Kill Dr. Lucky is actually a pretty decent game. I mean, sure, I guess. If we were talking here with this technical talk about like Windows stuff, then I may have heard of it. Maybe even if it was Linux stuff. But I'm not really like a Linux veteran. I've used it before, and it was fine. But only relatively recently did I make the decision that I was being so aggravated by Windows 11, and to be fair, it isn't only Windows 11; it's also that entire ecosystem that was starting to grate on me and cause much larger problems than I felt I needed to deal with. So brigades go here. So I'm very happy on Linux. What can I say at the moment? I will say that statement is not a general recommendation for every user to immediately hop over to Linux. I mean, if you feel like your frustration level with Windows or whatever is super duper high, then maybe you should consider it. But it is better if you are going to be a Linux user to have a certain amount of technical acumen. You do not need to be a professional IT person, but you will probably find yourself needing to use the command line from time to time. All this stuff you can look up, and actually Nobara in particular has a really good wiki. You probably will need to use the command line to do certain things. So I think the Apple market share is something like 7 or 8% right now, something like that. I forget. I don't quote me on that. I'm not pulling that number directly from my nether regions. So I'm also actually digging into Python a little bit right now as well for reasons that we might eventually talk about. But we'll see where that project goes. I am a passionate starter of projects and a terrible finisher of them. So yeah, this is true too. And actually, AI is actually pretty good for giving you coding solutions. If you can describe the code, the problem you're having in detail in text, AI might be able to help you. This is true. Hey, Mal, thanks for stopping by. Does mention that the 13th and 14th gen Intel Core processors do have many issues. Allegedly, mine is okay. The same computer. I will point this out, though. It's the same computer that I was using before on Windows 11 and having a shit ton of problems. I ran a bunch of different diagnostics, and I had some other people run diagnostics on the hardware here, and it has detected no issues. That said, there are still issues with these processors. So I'm probably, next computer is probably going to be an AMD, is my thought. This is another thing, Mike Reed. I do not dispute your tribulation here with Apple, but I don't have anything to say about it. If you are going to play video games, then you are better off on you are better off on Linux than you are on a Mac. I have had, what do I have installed at the moment? At the moment, and all of these run 100% fine. Here's what's installed at the moment. Elder Scrolls Online. I haven't played a lot of it, but it's installed and it works fine as far as I can tell. Starfield, which I'm playing again. X4 Foundations. I did have some issues with X4 Foundations, but I believe it's because the way the program is written, it really wants a swap file. And the way I set this system up, there wasn't a swap file. So I had to manually create one. And I have yet to have it crash since I did that. What else do I got? Total War 3 Kingdoms, which I just picked up and which looks pretty neat. Hearts of Iron 4, Victoria 3, Crusader Kings 3 from Paradox, Factorio, which I'm playing with the wife. And Minecraft, if I hadn't mentioned that yet, and Skyrim, or whatever the most recent deluxe anniversary, whatever bullshit that's been released 85 times, whatever that is, that works fine on this system too, with like no command line work necessary. I imagine that you can run emulators on a Mac to run Windows software. I don't need to, so I'm not worried about it. Steam does support Mac, so I mean, but that doesn't mean all the games are available on the Mac either. They are not. Oh, Stigler used to be a Mac acolyte, but he got tired of having the applications he wanted not to use, not be supported, so he got a PC. It's the applications. This is the most important thing. My eyes were opened a little bit when I had returned to school, and I was in classes with people. This is Latin class specifically, by the way, because we all got kind of chummy in that class because it was pretty much the same people for 4 semesters. And there were, a couple of Mac people in there, and they would say things like, what do you mean install a program? My Mac comes with everything I need. And if that's true, well, great. But the Mac doesn't come with everything I need. So I am therefore now on Linux. Dan's got a Mac as well. That is correct. And I have no idea what to tell him about it. If he has problems, I'm like, Dan, I'm sorry. I can't really help you. Vince Reese says that supposedly the new Wine release for Linux is a game changer when it comes to games. This may be true. So Wine unofficially stands for Wine is not an emulator. And it isn't. It's a compatibility layer. But Steam nowadays has its own built-in compatibility layer called Proton. And with Proton, I have had sometimes you'll have to like go in and select which Proton version to use. But I've had to do that exactly once. That was X4 Foundations. And I I have had like no problems other than that. Oh, Brant's got 4 Macs. Okay, well, I have 0 Macs. Thank you, Brant. Well, this is true, but lots of smart people have said stupid shit in the past. Mountains have been built out of stupid shit that Gary Gygax said in the past, for example. So Mo from Mo's Wargaming Table is here. Mo, thanks for stopping by. I remember ASL Gap, but I never used it, and I believe it is pretty much completely supplanted by Vassal nowadays. But I also think that there are at least a couple of older like virtual programs to play war games on, the names of which are eluding me at this time. And I believe that between Vassal and Tabletop Simulator, they have made those obsolete as well. John MC says that S&T's Wolfpack is available as a solitaire playable game on PC. That's cool. There's been a couple of these, actually. So I'm not sure he was a billionaire when he said that stupid thing, but I'm not sure that he wasn't. Java, there's so not to devolve into a technical rabbit hole here. There are good reasons to use Java for whatever your project is. If any of those reasons apply to you, if it needs to be completely portable on whatever platform you're using, then you probably want to use. I mean, Java should be something you think about. It is, in many respects, a very sloppy language, however. Okay, so Thomas Harrison, welcome back to the show. Says he uses a MacBook Air. I do like the form factor of the MacBook Air. So for a while, when I was doing different work from a previous employer, when I was on call, I would have the on-call phone, which was an iPhone at the time. So I kind of got used to that a little bit. And it's a nice device. It's very solid. It's well built. I mean, I have no serious complaints about it, other than the fact that it costs more money than I want to spend. So. Well, I don't think this is as dumb as maybe you think it does. In retrospect, sure, but retrospect is hindsight's 20/20, right? So I don't necessarily think it is a hassle moving files around like this, to be honest, which is why I was using OneDrive for the longest time, because it was friggin' convenient. Mike Reed mentions Gary Grigsby's Pacific Wargames, most war game like for the casual computer gamer. If we're talking about War in the Pacific Admirals Edition, that's a massive undertaking. It is a very detailed game. It is kind of best in class for what it's doing. Crazy Albert says that 99% of the time, most iPhone. Well, I mean, I don't use my Android phone most of the time for calls either. I use it to read books and look shit up on the internet. So I don't know. This is not an Apple thing. We did back in like grade school, and bear in mind this is like the early 80s or something like that. We did have Apple IIs. I don't remember which version of the Apple II in our like computer class, and we did some very light programming in BASIC at the time. There's an affordable Mac laptop line. Okay. I don't need a laptop right now. I have a perfectly functional MSI laptop that is my like portable workstation, which is currently still on Windows 11, and fuck all if I'm not frustrated every time I turn the thing on, but it's still on Windows, and I'll probably keep it on Windows for the time being. Eventually, it may be repurposed to Linux. Stigler, I'm happy for you that you're not having extreme problems with Windows 11, but a lot of people are. Among other reasons is because they keep issuing updates that break the fucking thing. And then you have trouble installing the new update that fixes the thing that they just broke with the last update. And I don't want to deal with any of that. So I played Panzer General back in the day. That's was a pretty good game, as I recall. Mo's got an iPhone, but when he retires, he's dropping it and going with a flip phone. This is a bit of an odd thing to say for somebody who I feel like I'm perpetually online. I am increasingly finding myself wanting to disconnect from online at certain times of day, right? So I kind of sympathize with where Mo's coming from on this. Oh, like on the bus, for example? Yes, I have seen these people. But I have noise-canceling headphones, so I don't care. Bill ran into a friend in 2004 and asked him for a cell phone number, and he said, "What do I look like, James Bond?" Which is fantastic. When did I get a cell phone first? I'm guessing it was in the 90s, early 90s. That sounds right. Could be wrong. It was a Nokia like everybody else had back in the day. And those things are built like bricks. I've still got a couple of old Samsung flip phones, which for all I know, might even get brought back out at some point. I'd have to find chargers for them. Yep, me too. I don't know about app use necessarily, but for texting, yeah. Mike Reed is a Samsung user. Have you smashed the like button so far? And remember, folks, that we have hit 10,000 subscribers, so there's going to be a giveaway next week. So on next week's Counter Clipping show. Yep. And Brant, we've told the story many times, so I'm not going to tell you, but Brant can vouch for that Origins horror story where it's first day of Origins, there's 10,000 people waiting in line, and they turn all the computers on at registration, and across the building, Windows Update. Legendary. Just legendary. At the time, I was actually in a Windows 10 deployment as well, so I thought it was exceptionally funny just because it was what I was dealing with at the time right then as well. All right, I want to talk about phones here, folks. I want to talk about games. So, people don't want to call anymore. This is true. I've noticed this as well. This is true. So, in traveler news, the new Consular Envoy Adventure is out, and in digital at least. The physical book won't be released for a while, some months. But I haven't picked it up yet. I did pick up the Jordani Core Expeditions book, and I like that book a lot, but it's a little less usable in like an actual campaign than I would like it to be. Well, that was the subject of the show. We have brought up a huge number of examples. I mentioned the Decision Games minis, some of which I think are quite good. The Worthington and Mike Lambo book games are good examples, and a variety of other people have expressed their history of putting kits together to travel with without necessarily hauling the boxes around. Vassal on like a tablet makes sense to me. Vassal on my phone sounds like something I don't need. It's already. I wish it scrolled a little, or wished it zoomed a little better already on the PC. And I've got an enormous monitor. If you've seen the pictures, I am 100% sympathetic to this, Brian Gash. We did so in previous lives. We always had, they would give us a phone for like work related purposes, but the last employer was use your own device. Now, to be fair, I think I got like a total of 6 calls in almost 5 years with those people, so it's not like they were bothering me all the time. So here's another good point that I think we all need to just kind of make peace with. We're getting old now, folks. I don't know about you, but I feel like I'm getting old. I fell down the fucking stairs like a couple of weeks ago, so like an old man. My brother-in-law's father fell down the stairs and was like seriously injured not too long ago. Well, this was supposed to be the Vassal 4 or whatever it is that they've supposedly been working on for years. I have no idea where that's at. I stopped paying attention to it once it was obvious that no forward progress was occurring. The great thing about Vassal, there was the other suggestion that was immediately brought up, was just take your laptop with you with Vassal on it, and you can play whatever you want. Solitaire, not solitaire, whatever it is. So Mike Reed has bought several mag-sized PVC boxes to store the mag games in, just the size to put in the backpack. I'm going to grab something, actually, because I think I know what he's talking about. So I've got this thing that I think came from Amazon, and currently it's holding the SAR game Strike Counter-Strike for GTS, which I have not played. But yeah, these actually fit magazine games very well, and they will slip into your carry-on, and they will protect the contents of that much better than like a Ziploc bag would. So, all right. All right, so Brant has to head out. Brant, thanks for stopping by, and he mentions that the Connections Online registration opens tomorrow. So if you're interested in that, it is a mostly professionally oriented wargame conference, but there's always some good talks in there, and some things that are worth your time, even if you are not in the professional wargaming space. I think if this was... The problem with this is there's no implementation for this, right? There's no real implementation for touchscreens in Vassal right now. And if they did it right, it could be a game changer. But I am unaware of any serious progress that's been made in that department. Nice. Brian Gash broke out last Blitzkrieg. Oh, and you got it for me. And I'm so glad that I picked up another copy of it. Actually won the second copy in the raffle at Winter Offensive. And I'm glad that I did, because it's now my favorite Bulge game. So great game. If you have not seen it, I've said this 10 million times, but go check out the Tabletop's Edge playthrough videos on last Blitzkrieg. All right, Bill Simone. Bill, thanks for stopping by. Says that Vassal modules are space hogs. Very few modules compress the images. This is true. Yeah, they can be, and you sometimes will have to like go in and adjust like the memory available for larger modules, like the Gauss modules in particular. You had to do this, or they just would be so glacially slow. Even with that, they took forever to open. Yeah, it probably is, and about $20 for 4 of them is about what these cost, as I recall. They are nice, and I would if I was transporting magazine games to some faraway place, I would 100% stick it in here. That said, I probably would bring something like SPI's The Crusades or something like that, or Sicily Race for Messina, which I know Stigler's a big fan of. I am aware of this. There's a small team behind it, and they're doing the Lord's work, and I thank them for that. So we've got what we got. It would be cool if we had real touchscreen support. And if we don't, well, it's still the best option for a lot of regular war games. I've said this a million times, Carl, actually, and this has been the case since I played the thing. My favorite Bulge game would probably be Ardennes 44, I would think. But I just like BCS a lot. Now, don't forget, we played a bunch of BCS at Buckeye Game Fest, which was great. Well, the Aegis magazine trays are actually quite nice too. You do sometimes, you can, unless you got to be careful about opening them, because sometimes you'll get that pop with the Aegis trays. But the magazine trays are really nice, and I do like them. I'm very interested in seeing anything that Cube for Me does, however. I feel like at this point, the best in general, the specific cases aside, the best counter trays are coming from Cube for Me. I just think that that's the case. The lids snap on correctly. They have less dead air space than like the GMT trays do. And this is not an exhortation for GMT to change the way they've been making counter trays for the past 25 years or however long it's been. Those counter trays are fine, and I still use tons of them. But like if I'm buying counter trays now, and I just don't need to buy GMT counter trays because people give them to me, then I would rather buy the Cube for Me trays. All right, John MC mentions Page 121, which is a favorite YouTube channel, actually. Just did a video talking about Gamma World settings with Traveler. It would be less well, it depends which version of Gamma World, too. I mean, they're there are several editions of Gamma World, and they differ noticeably in this underlying mechanics. So if you're talking about the old one, which I think he was, then I would just use AD&D because that's kind of what it's tuned to. Oh, I thought that Stigler was saying that he is in regular contact with the FBI here for a second. So I do like my boxing solution for magazine games better than these because it's more space efficient, but these are definitely better for transportation. All right, so Bill says that he bets that the real barrier with Vassal is making all those existing modules work if you change core code so it works on touchscreens. Yeah, and I think this is true. And remember that a lot of those Vassal modules were like done years ago, and nobody's touched them in a decade or more. So, so I do think this is a significant problem, and it's not like this doesn't come up now, right? It totally does. Oh, I don't think I have Boomerman Dan. Well, let me grab that. So I didn't bring a dice tower to Buckeye Game Fest because I was kind of traveling light on purpose. But then we played 3 days worth of BCS. So I'm like, well, you need a dice tower for this. So folks called Silverwood Wood Designs, Silverwood Wood Designs, all one word.com is their website. They have a lot of different little tiny dice towers like this with little magnets so they snap together. You're not going to get super huge dice in here like D30s or something like that, but who cares? For the dice we use for playing BCS or OCS, which are the ones that come in the MMP boxes or identical dice, these are perfect. So we played 3 days worth of BCS using this, or at least 2 days worth of BCS playing this thing. This is like some dragon from some movie. It was like one of the only thing I didn't want, like one with the TIE fighter on it or something like that. And I don't think they had plain ones. They will do custom ones, however. And this was like $35. And I'm not sure what wood this is. I should have asked, but it's a hardwood, so it's not like it's made from the cheapest possible materials, like the craft wood that I bought from Michael's to build mine the last time I built one for myself. All right. Yeah, we got a local guy who's moving his games, generally speaking, from GMT trays to baggies, which I'd rather not do. But he's been giving me all his extra GMT trays. So I have something like 40 GMT trays sitting in the back room here. All right. I didn't mean it this way, Stigler, but you're good. You're good. It's all good. I'm not really into watching the Steve Jobs movie, I got to tell you. I've got other things that I want to watch. All right, John MC, thanks for stopping by. Be well. It could be cherry, but if it was cherry, I would think it would have been stained with a cherry stain. I think they use the same stain on all of these, to be completely honest. That's possible. Is there a product number on here? It doesn't say that there is. But here's the detail on the back. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see that or not. Silverwood Wood Designs. Nice stuff. They have other stuff too. They have like flat dice trays and card boxes and all that stuff, and it's all wood. So I should have just asked. This is really true, and I have actually moved. In the past, I have been generally anti-baggy. I have generally preferred putting stuff in counter trays. However, I'm not sure Mike Reed's right. I think that at some point it might be, it depends on the game, but at some point it might be easier to deal with baggies as opposed to a counter tray. But it does depend on the game. And even, when I was no baggies guy, I was still putting some games in baggies, like Napoleonic Wars. Doesn't make any sense to store that stuff in a counter tray. Just use baggies for that. You're the Austrians. Boom, here you go. Lately, I have moved in the direction of baggies, because the fact is, if I can get all the World in Flames stuff in the World in Flames box if it's in baggies. All the counters, the insane number of counters that's in that thing, they're all in the box now, which was not the case before. So at some point, I don't know when this is going to happen. I have no plans to do it immediately. I will be moving all of the Gauss games from plastic trays that are sitting on a shelf right now because they don't fit in a box, into baggies as well. As Danny reminds us, please do hit the thumbs up, folks. Now, I do like the tray dividers. I find that they are incredibly beneficial, and I have not, in fact, made any progress on repairing the 3D printer. I really do need to get to that. Remember that both Cube for Me and Aegis have half-size counter trays or thereabouts. And those can be extremely handy too. Though those Dollar General or whatever it was little plastic trays with lids that we were buying, I know Mo was buying them too, and I bought a bunch as well. Like every time I went in there, I would like buy whatever they had, but they haven't had those in a long time. I've probably still got a couple of them. And those were good for things like coin games or something like that, where it's really more of little blocks than counters. The counters are just like informational markers, and there would be typically like 6 different kinds, and they would all fit very nicely in those. It could have been Dollar Tree. I forget. And yes, like the Pollard markers that you get in BCS. Although, to be honest about it, if we have like planned to play BCS, we use the sheets instead of the markers. It's just easier for something like Yellow Beachhead game. It doesn't really matter too much because the density is so low. But when it comes to like tracking the losses using the Pollard markers, I don't have a problem with. I certainly don't have a problem with them in line of battle either. But when it comes to assigning the replacements, it is way easier to deal with the sheets than it is the Pollard markers. So this is hilarious, Bill, because one of the games that I can think of off the top of my head that is least suited to storing in counter trays is Space Empires 4X. That's probably going to get repackaged into baggies as well, frankly. Ooh, that's a big order, man. That's a big order. Those are nice. I'm using some. They sent me a care package of stuff some time ago, and I have used virtually all of it. I may have some of the smaller trays left, but not many. Also, big shout out to Alexander from the Player's Aid, who gave me his formation cards for Inflection Point. I didn't have those, so that's fantastic. Thank you, Alexander. Big props. Yeah, I guess, but you're also you can just keep those in piles in front of you. Oh, nice. Brian Gash dropped $200 at Cube for Me. It's not that difficult. Their trays are pricier than GMT's trays, and they're coming from Poland, but at least the last time I ordered any, it wasn't like it didn't take that long, and it didn't cost that much money to have it shipped from Poland. That said, that was before all this customs and other tariff nonsense that we now have to deal with. So I don't know where that's at the moment. Yes, these are, in fact, the ones I am talking about. They are really nice. I like them a lot. They are both practical and fancy, if you know what I mean. And you can use the Danny Secaries. Oh, very good. Okay, so he's mentioning the 3D printed boxes from, I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of the channel, but it's all in GMT's monthly update. And there's a huge pile of GMT games that there are like custom designed counter trays for. So That's a lot. That I'm not going to lie, that's a lot. I have not had any issues with opening the Cube for Me trays. I've had more issues opening the Aegis trays because if you're not kind of meticulous with opening them, they can pop, and a popping counter tray means counters all over the place potentially. I agree with this, Mike Reed. Maybe we'll be talking to a Polish designer maybe as early as tomorrow. How about that? Stay tuned for those videos, folks. I haven't done the editing yet, so. Well, you could just download the cards from BGG or wherever they are and just use those, and that's fine. You don't need the fancy pre-printed cards. You can just use the print them on your own printer. Yeah, I haven't really had a lot of pop issues with the Cube for Me trays. Did I? Yes, that's true. That's true. I did have a designer with Greg Krylovitz, who is designing Enforced to Heaven, which is coming from VUCA Simulations, which looks amazing. And I am personally extremely excited about that particular game, in part because the game looks good, and in part because I think it's an interesting topic that nobody has done at that scale. The closest thing is either Poland Defiant from Revolution, I think it's from Revolution, or the old Case White from GDW. And you know, you're signing up for a project if you want to play that campaign in Europa. So anyway, folks, we are going to wrap it up at this point because I think we have exhausted the topic of traveling with Wargames, and I don't really want to talk about your iPhone anymore. So we're going to wrap it up. There should be some video tomorrow, so check that out. There might even be 2 videos tomorrow because reasons, but we will see, and there should be something on Thursday as well. Otherwise, I will be back with you on Sunday night with Dan, and of course don't forget that we will be giving some giveaways away, or at least a giveaway. I don't know, like I said, I haven't thought about it yet. Next week on the Counter Clipping Show. So everybody have a great rest of the night. We'll see you all again soon.